What is one thing you wish people knew about you, but is not obvious by simply looking at you?
I don't know.
Or the fact that I actually have ADHD.
I smile a lot. That's pretty obvious, isn't it?
Yeah.
I didn't do so good academically in high school, and it took me a while to get where I'm at right now academically.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm approachable and I am open to different ideas to share.
I wish they would see that I was, a bit smarter than I am, because usually people portray me as this, bearded man, I'm supposed to be rough and tough, but I'm actually smart for my age, so.
I want to be a physician's assistant.
Oh, nice. It's a good feeling.
I wish they knew that I was intelligent instead of being mean all the time. That's what I used to be, but everybody thinks that I look pissed off each day, and I'm always a nice guy and no one really understands me that often.
Probably that I care more about my education more than people would assume. My brain is more important than my brawn, and people just think I'm a jock or something weird like that, something funny, but I like chess and, board games and video games, stuff like that, so yeah, probably that.
Why do you like that stuff?
Why do I like this stuff? That's what I grew up on, Yeah, that's before I realized what a gym was. I was more into brain stuff. School was really important to me ever since I was a kid. So I guess my family kind of brought me up to really care about that more than anything else. So
that's cool.
I'm very ambitious and intelligent and kind.
I do improv comedy. Yeah.
I would say the number one thing is probably that I'm a veteran.
I work with a nonprofit organization called Save Brooks that works with domestic violence and abuse of children and women.
I'm a pretty passionate guy, When I get involved in something, I stick with it, and it's kind of hard to see that because I'm really a quiet person.
In what ways do you communicate with the people around you? Friends, classmates, teachers?
I'm a little old school. I tend to, if I can, I like to talk to people face to face. I find it weird talking over the phone or trying to text.
I communicate with them by speaking, making conversation, bringing up certain topics that we are all interested in.
I text them or use Canvas.
Instant messaging, one-on-one conversations, phone calls.
Obviously talking to people. Mostly talking to people. As far as school-based, I email people a lot. I'm, like I said, introverted, so I try and cut back on some of the face-to-face unless I already know the people. But yeah, people in my personal life, it's texting and calling.
I just act like myself and just be goofy and be very nice.
Memes. Through memes and through my captions to the memes or for the memes. Memes are life, brother.
I communicate by text messaging or Facebook or emails. The best way to get a hold of me is usually by phone, just because I don't usually get back right away, only unless if it's directly to me. So, such as my phone, texting, it's just I have it handy, I have it on me, and I can get back to you right away.
I think just direct conversation, hours of just having random conversation on life and situations and stuff like that. I think it's the easiest way to communicate with people.
I tend to, when I communicate, I tend to use social media a lot. Okay. That's heavily influenced this generation.
Yes.
I feel like if it wasn't for social media, it would be just like the modern days as you could see 30 years ago, letters and stuff like that. But it tends to be heavily influenced by social media and just in-person interactions, especially with teachers and other people.
Talking to people in class about a project, maybe.
Texting? No. Honestly, without that, I'm in charge of my daughter's whole cheerleading organization, and I get between 15 to 20 texts or emails every 2 hours.
Wow.
So, yeah, I don't actually talk to people on the phone, though. It's draw the line.
Social media obviously is one of the biggest things. I found a lot of friends that I'd lost touch with, and used to be a blessing. Now it's almost a curse. But I like to text a lot, only because in certain situations I can't be on the phone.
Verbal communication, canvas messaging, phone number, things like that. Or if I see someone in the hallway, just communicate like that.
I'm very understanding, and in other words, I think I'm not religious, but I am spiritual, and I feel that I'm an empath, meaning that I can feel the people's emotions very deeply, even if they only tell me very little about the subject.
Do you think your generation communicates differently than the previous generations?
Yes, I do.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, much differently.
Most definitely, yeah.
Yes, very much.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, if you look back just 10, 20, 30 years ago, you can see telephones, emails, just all kinds of social media precisely. It's a whole different ballgame when you just look at every year at that. You know, you have more social media popping up, even more people, older folks getting on social media to get in contact with their children, their loved ones, anybody they care about.
I think that we find it that is a little bit complicated, the technology on phones today. So we just, like the fact that, we just can dial and just make the phone call.
When I was growing up, I didn't have a cell phone until I was in high school. Like, it was new stuff. It was all new stuff. So if I wanted to talk to my friends in the middle of class, it wasn't sitting there with my phone like this. It was writing something down and folding it up into a little football and chucking it behind me.
I feel like although now that we have smartphones, things are kind of easier and faster, our lives kind of run so fast that we forget that the people around us still kind of want to hear from us.
People these days, they're constantly on their phones, just sitting there, and even walking across the sidewalk and not paying attention with their phones, could get hit by a car. I mean,
Yes, good and bad. Bad social media is just taking over. You get so wrapped up in social media, you just don't even realize what's going on around you. But good, because I feel like social media also brings us all together. So it is different, yes.
Oh, absolutely, yes, 100%. Even with like slang terms and whatnot.
Yeah, I tie no to a rock and toss it. But I would guess for my generation as a whole, I'm pretty computer literate because I worked with computers and business stuff. But I've noticed through when I worked in the library and also through tutoring, a lot of people my age, and even some younger, have very little computer skills.
Really?
And I guess it all depends on, like I said, where you've worked and what you've been exposed to.
People back then used to solve problems aren't the ways we as like people around my age 23 don't solve them that way.
Okay.
Like they result in fighting, they result in arguments, posts on Facebook, whereas people back then were like, why are you even paying minds and stuff like that?
I don't know, people just usually communicate on their phone. They don't actually talk to actual people from the outside. They usually like staying inside.
We have a lot of patience for writing and reading. And that's because that's what we had to do, that was our primary way of communicating. And I find now that students tend to be a little bit shorter attention spans, most people, and they want you to get to the point immediately, okay? So I do think that's a big difference. Other than that, people are people, like we all want the same things that we used to want, but we, I think we just reach out differently, that's all.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being very bad and 10 being very good, how would you rate the quality of communication between you and your friends, classmates, or teachers?
I would probably rate it a 7.
Probably 6.
I'd say a 6.
Maybe a 5.
5.
I'd say 10. I mean, we all keep in contact fairly often, and it's not like a big problem. I guess a part of it is just I do like keeping in contact with those people that I care about or teach, I feel like it's important for them to feel that I'm there.
I think we have pretty good communication, so maybe like a 9 because you can always do better.
Is that the same with friends and teachers and?
Yeah. I do think though that it's better if you call or FaceTime someone or see them in person rather than text message. Even though studies have shown that emojis give the same effect as like personality traits and like faces that you make when you talk. I just learned that in psychology.
A 7. I am very quiet and shy and not very I'm outgoing, but I have to know you very well to be around you, getting to know you, going places.
It's 5. 5. Why do you think your communication is at that level?
I guess people judge you right away when they first see you, I guess.
Really?
Yeah.
I live far away, so I can't really talk to my professors really face to face if I have any questions outside of college. So kind of have to rely on emails and all that.
I think 10 will be solid because I'm very big on communication. I'm very big on just talking things out and making sure there's no room for misunderstanding, so.
That's good.
8.
An 8? So why do you think your communication is at that level?
I'm not afraid for teachers. I'm not afraid to ask for help. For students, I'm not afraid to get study groups together.
That's
Friends,
good. Yeah.
I'm always there.
That's really good.
I would probably say because not many people know how to communicate effectively.
Okay.
And not many people are willing to put in the time to communicate because communication is a time process.
Very true.
Yeah.
I believe is a 9. 9.
And why do you think it's a 9?
I like to talk and be firm, and I think honesty and friendship is part of communication. If you want to communicate something positive, there's different ways you can communicate. You can, communicate with a good morning, smile, or you can, be like, come on. It all depends how you feel and how you want people to look at you.
What issues, obstacles, or advancements affect the level at which you communicate?
If I can think about my friends, well, first of all, I don't really have any friends, so that's kind of a loaded question there.
Severe depression, ADHD, hypothyroidism.
Okay. All right.
Well, I stutter with words a lot, and I say the wrong word at a different time.
Probably having a bad day.
Having a bad day, okay.
That's a good answer. We haven't.
That's a good point, yeah.
Time. I work 2 jobs. I'm a full-time student. It's a lot.
Jeez. I don't know if I'm behind my phone too much. I won't know how to talk to somebody face to face. I'll forget how to talk to people.
So we could say that the phone's an obstacle.
Phone is an obstacle.
All right.
Sometimes, depending on our feelings, that can hinder the way we communicate.
I don't know, maybe distance sometimes. Like one of my really close friends lives in Pottsville. It's about an hour away from here.
Like with text messages, sometimes things can get misinterpreted or you aren't able to get a point across,
For calling, it's hard to open up. It's really hard. Texting, I could just spit out my mind.
I have an accent, and you might not hear it, but I hear it very strongly.
Yeah, I've had many of those days where, you just you just want to get the day over with, not really talk to anybody and just speed on by everything,
Power outages, no internet connection, or just not having anyone around to talk to.
Well, whether my phone is charged, whether my phone bill is paid. Also just could be distance or circumstances, like if I'm working, sometimes I can't communicate with someone.
Yeah.
Also, like when I'm home, a lot of times I don't like to be bothered
Okay.
with certain things.
It's
I
like your
to
safe
do
haven,
kind of
yeah.
like my own thing, and
Yeah.
I'll see someone. If I think it's important, I'll answer. If not, things like that.
Any kind of technological errors. Besides that, really, what would stop me? Face-to-face interactions would have to be just distance. If people are far away, that tends to be a problem. If you're 5 miles away, 10 miles away, it's kind of a headache per se.
Yeah.
I think technology in a sense, because people kind of when you approach somebody face to face, they don't know how to like exactly communicate like that way unless it's like I think there's a meme that says like, oh, when someone texts you and they call you instead, it's like, don't you just hate that? I'm like, why do you hate that? Like, it's like, so you're afraid to talk to them directly. You have to, I think the way texting and instant messaging goes is you're able to edit your thoughts too much. Like, you ever seen those things where you text and you go back, you text and you back, you edit it perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking to somebody, there's no room for edit. What comes out your mouth comes out your mouth, and they don't know how to filter that as well.
When you have an argument with a friend over something controversial, how do you resolve it?
I fight them.
Just get out.
I would give him a heart-to-heart and ask him how his day was and why he thinks that way.
Agree to disagree.
We usually just agree to disagree.
I'm very go with the flow, so I definitely have my own opinions. I just don't, if they don't align with yours, I'm not going to be the person that's going to yell and scream and debate with you.
You can't really be good friends with someone unless you have arguments with them. That's how it is, because that's how you get to know people better.
I was told by someone close to me recently that my problem is that I get too passionate and it almost seems like I'm trying to argue. So what she said to me was, Amber, I totally agree with almost everything you say, but the way you say it makes me want to argue with you. So I really took that to heart.
If it's something that's really not important to me, I'll let it go. I won't even argue.
Okay.
And I say, yeah, you believe what you want, I believe what I want. But if it's something that's really important, I might make an effort to argue it, but then if I see I'm not getting anywhere, I'll just leave it alone.
That's good.
Oh man, I hate conflict. Even if I know I'm right, I always try to see the other person's point of view, and then I just try to I let it go. I'm like, all right, there are worse things in the world to fight over this specific thing, especially with friends.
I don't think it's something to resolve. I think it's something to making sure that you're coming across as clear as possible to the other person so you both can understand each other's view, not necessarily agree or resolve anything. It's more of understanding that this is where I stand and this is where you stand, and that's okay.
I just state my points and they state their points, and we kind of discuss what each of us are talking about until we come to a fair understanding, or if we understand that it's not ever going to be resolved the way that we want it to, we can kind of just respect each other's point of view and move on.
People are always going to have different opinions from you. Even some of your closest and best friends will have different opinions from you.
Depends on what friend. Depends on the level of friend. Because I have some friends that would just be like, all right, let's just low-key hash this out. And then there's some my best friend, and we're yo, knock down, drag out, let's go.
Try and get it over with as quickly as possible.
Okay, that's your number one strategy.
And if they insist on continuing it, then I will continue it with much more intensity than they are.
Usually, best way to resolve things is just kind of agree with them. Even if you think that they're wrong, just kind of go with it and be like, all right, you were right, I was wrong. Let's move on from this.
I end up asking about it. It depends. I'll give it time to see if it's just something really minor and insignificant that'll just blow over. But if it's something that's lingering, I don't like awkward feelings. I would rather just go, okay, what's the issue here? Are we going to settle it? If we're not, we're not going to talk. Let's figure it out now, because I'm not going to be lingering in this awkward silence. Yeah, I'm not going to hold that. I have better things to do. So let's figure it out now, or else, So.
First of all, if I'm upset about it, I try to walk away and ask to have some space to first calm myself down, because I don't think that when you are upset, you can communicate clearly. Other stuff that you don't want to say, that's the stuff that comes out. And I think the best thing is to just give yourself some space and come
cool
back
down.
and talk it out.
I try to calm myself down, and I try to calm the other person down, so we both can come to agreement. And then if the agreement is okay, then we're fine.
What happens if you're not in agreement?
Then we'll be both mad at each other, but they'll still be friends, and it will later on come to agreement.
When a problem usually occurs, I like to talk to them head on eventually. I mean, at first you may have the little like, they get a little upset, they get a little mad by themselves and they don't talk to anybody. But then when I notice something is off, you could just tell by their tendencies. I address it head on, you know, and how can we resolve it? If we can resolve it, then that's perfect. If not, then it is what it is. You know, you're gonna have, you know, be as you want to be until you want to fix it.
So what are your strategies
to fixing it?
Yes.
A big part is to listen. When we're arguing, we believe that the world is centered around us and that we have all the facts and we are 100% right, which for the most part is not completely true. So it's about standing back and listening to where that person is coming from and then try and understand where you want to convey to that person and then go from there.
By looking at the facts and working it out and making sure that even though it's controversial, we're seeing the facts to it and making sure, even if we end up with different opinions at the end,
yes,
we're still seeing the facts.
I see.
Try to be cooperative and collaborative instead of trying to overthrow the other's perception or point of view. Like, instead of trying to make it as like a persuasive argument or like a debate where there's a clear winner and a clear loser, just treat that as something where you can both grow.
Relax and try to talk the person calmly so they can calm down.
I don't like back down and be like, oh no, you're right, but I'm like, I understand what you're saying. If you really think this is worth fighting more, I will hear you, but I don't, so.
To use I statements and not like kind of make the other person feel like they're responsible for the fight, because there's always, you know, two sides to a story, so I can state how I feel and then see what their response is and try to work that out.
Putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. So it's not verbal. I think it's mental and emotional. It is not enough just saying putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, because sometimes it's not that simple if you don't know how to do it. Until it happens to you, you don't understand. So sometimes there's not a strategy. You just have to hear them out and that's it. So listen to somebody doesn't have to mean that you have to agree with them. You could just listen to them and that could be a strategy.
Yeah, just need someone to talk
just
to.
Listening.
Yeah, that is true.
Being open-minded, you know, hearing their side.
That's right.
I directly shooting
It's
them
hard
down.
to do that sometimes, especially if you've never done it or if you've never been taught. It's not something you're born with.
Definitely.
Do you think communication has been helped or hindered with advancements in technology?
That's a good question.
I think it has been hindered. I work at the Reading Hospital and I deal with the robots, and that can hinder jobs, work areas, different areas of grocery shopping. You now have pickup and at Walmart or different stores around the world where it's eliminating jobs and making it, you're just losing that communication with other people around you.
It's like a double-edged sword because, yes, it makes it easier for people to communicate. There's more ways for people to communicate, but I think it takes out a lot of the person-to-person, the interpersonal, actually talking to someone, being in the same room as someone, and having to get to know how to relate to somebody else when talking to them, when trying to communicate something specific.
Communication has been greatly helped, okay? Anybody can talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime. But I think there is a downside, and that's what I mentioned before. I think that you're never off, you're never away. It's easier for kids to get bullied. You know, I've heard of kids crying under their sheets at night because people said mean things on the, cell phone, on the internet. So basically, I think people take the less connected approach sometimes. Like, why visit that person if you could call them? Why call them if you can email them? Why email them if you can text them? You see what I mean? So we have to push ourselves to actually have a real conversation, because talking is so much, you read the body language when you talk face to face, and it's harder to get that through the electronic means.
I think on a larger scale it's helped because I can talk to my friend in Indiana whenever I want with a quick video call, and I couldn't do that before without having to write a letter of some sort. But at the same time, on a more personal level, it's probably separated your neighbor more than anything, because being able to have this face-to-face conversation is so, you know, almost taboo these days. Like, let's just
awkward,
you know, it's really awkward. So on a larger scale, it's brought us closer, but on a closer scale, it kind of brought us farther in the same. So it's kind of a balance there.
That's a good analogy.
Hindered because people just, there's no emotion with like a text message, unless, even with talking on the phone, you can, one person can be acting like, oh, they're upset or like they're sad, but they could be just faking it, rather than if you're just in person, like you could actually see their emotion.
I think it's helped. I mean, if I want to quick text my best friend about something ridiculous or my boyfriend about dinner, I can quickly ask versus wait all day, get annoyed because of time.
It's a little bit of both, to be honest with you. I mean, for the most part, I would say helped, because it really gives you a whole different, you know, platform to talk to others. You know, you have all this technology nowadays. It's, you know, if you want to send someone a message saying I love you or whatever, you know, you want to say, you can say at any given time, whether it's a text message, through email, through social media such as Twitter, Facebook, and any kind of platform. It's all open to you, you know. And instead of, you know, sending out a letter or talking to them in person, you can now contact them via any social media platform, which makes it convenient at any location.
In a sense, I could see it both ways. I feel like it has been advanced because it's so much easier to be able to communicate with other people. Like, I can easily find someone from a different country online and ask them about like their culture or where they live. But it also does kind of hinder, because like people are so different behind a screen. So you could be one person online, but then in person it's different. And like if you're so used to just having like this online persona, you kind of lose your sense of like person to person communication.
I think it's all in the hands of the user. A lot of people say that communication has made us antisocial and that we really don't branch out or speak to people, and I disagree 100%. I think it's all in the hands of the user. Thanks to social media and to devices like that, I can speak to somebody in China, I can speak to somebody in Europe, just how I can speak to someone right here, right now. And I think it's an amazing tool.
Do you feel communication has affected the news media or how information is relayed?
Yeah, 100%. It has definitely affected how we process information and how we get our information.
Oh, definitely. I teach science here at RACC, and both social media and all the advancements in communication have made it easier both to relay good things and true things, but also fake things. And spreading around false news and spreading around incorrect scientific stuff, claiming it's a scientific study, is easier than ever now. And people will just say, hey, I read it online, and you know, it's kind of tough to get them to get out of that mindset, although what they read didn't really have any basis behind it.
A lot of people are seeing Facebook as a credible source and as a news outlet when it's not.
Currently, the media sways the people's attention to believe all kinds of lies.
I don't think everyone has the same perspective of it, you know?
Okay.
Like, a lot of people see it different.
Yeah, like the information that's being given.
Yeah.
I only hear through about politics and stuff like that through Twitter, and Instagram and stuff like that. So it does get to me. Maybe not the way it should.
Now, in terms of politics, would you automatically believe what you perceive on social media to be true?
Definitely not, but it's up to me to continue on with the research. If it interests me, if it shocks me in some way, it's up to me to continue to find the real answer.
I guess you can say, if you're talking about news, something that happened out in the street where someone was shot just because of being at the wrong place at the wrong time. And because they are associated with people like drugs and violence, they're automatically considered to be under that category and not taken as serious, so then they put it on the news like, oh, this person was doing drugs, you know, associated with people in a gang, and because of that, this person should not get justice for what has happened to them. I feel like that the news kind of like perceives that person to be someone that they are really not.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
People post things on social media about something, the news catch right on to that stuff. Like it's their job. We don't know what's true and what's not anymore.
I think communication's gone all over the place. Like, people use social media for a million different things. The news outlets are used for a million different things, not necessarily what they were originally intended for. Like, social media was supposed to be for people to connect with people. The news was supposed to be relating important things that are going on, and now everybody's pretty much just a big crap fest.
We actually had a conversation about this in class before about newspapers and their lack of relevancy when it comes to like actual like social media aspects of relaying news. And I mean, before there was a time where in order to get someone's statement, you had to be in front of them and catch that word. Now we have Twitter and social. Everyone's got a camera with their phone. You know, you don't have to have paparazzi follow you. You have somebody with a cell phone that can catch you doing something. So I think it's very much more wide open, and things could be like relayed differently. Messages could be misconstrued, because I think the way he typed that makes him sound like he's doing this, but having a more face-to-face conversation, you understand what that person's saying based on body language and tone and, you know, all that, voice inflection and all that. So I think it's made things a lot more complicated, because there's so many different ways to like receive and send information, but it could be misconstrued so often that it just kind of brings up this kind of chaotic
Yeah, it's
kind
based
of
on
mess.
the person, how they interpret.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that's kind of makes it a little messy, but
Great.
I feel like it has, because now the news can cover places from further off. They can cover up people like the news in New York can cover something down in Florida with almost pure ease.
On social media, like, Donald Trump literally tweets like whatever he feels. It's so wacky. But there's so many more outlets and so many more like ways for multiple people, like everyone to get their opinion out, that there's more to think about when it comes to stuff like that.
I'm not going to get political or anything, but I mean, like, our president with his tweets and stuff gets him in trouble sometimes.
All you need to do is look at Trump's Twitter posts. That has very much had an impact.
I remember when I was younger, news was reported just very matter-of-factly. There was no emotion, it was fact-based. This happened, blah, blah, blah. Now it's all very like, oh, this creep did this, and this bum did this horrible thing, and it's all, it's too emotional, and so that kind of plays on people's fears and things like that, and it needs to get back to that.
I agree.
Just even, again, I'm not not a Facebook addict, but I have to laugh that there are certain people that constantly share stories, and I'm like, is that even true? Like, how do you? But because it's on there, because people, so they assume that it must be true.
We live in a world that if they want us to believe in something that is not true, they can use communication to manipulate people to believe that. And I think in a way that's wrong. That's wrong. If we want to communicate something, we need to be fair and truthful about it. We can, just use it to manipulate people so that they can do things that, it's not good for us as a community, as a society.
I feel like there is communication a little bit, but then they can bring out the wrong information, and when you go look it up online, there it is.
People get angry about the things that they hear, and then they take sides instead of really analyzing. Let's sit down, let's look at this really, deeply. And what happens is they take sides and they start, getting angry and bitter about certain things that are happening. And in reality, if we look at things, things are not that bad. We just have to make a few changes,